Blog Talk Radio.
Oops. Okay, so that's the wrong fucking music. Excuse me. Anyway, we are back. Welcome to the 415. I am here with my co-host, as always, Starr Bustamonte. Say hello, Starr.
Hello, Starr.
415 is brought to you by House of Black Cat Magic, The Wild Hunt, and the 415. I am brought to you by Desperate House Witches and DorothyMorrison.com. You're going to hear cursing. You're going to hear upset voices. You're going to hear a lot of stuff. Welcome to us. Thanks for everybody who sent out messages when the system crashed. I appreciate y'all. It looks like BTR got their crap back together. Also, before we go into anything, I want to say, please support the Wild Hunt. Go to wildhunt.org. Give it all your support. It's pagan paper of record. They are giving us real news with real news reporters. It is very important that we maintain a credible news source somewhere because they're few and far between. Also, we would like to recognize that it is Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. What would you like to say about that, Starr?
Well, I mean, I think it's just really, really important that we recognize, you know, all of the different, you know, peoples that make up the U.S. and it, you know, it's just really, really important. And this year also marks the 25th anniversary of the White House Initiative and President's Advisory Commission on Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders, who work across government to advance equity, opportunity, and justice for all peoples, but specifically those. So I just think it's important to acknowledge that and recognize what huge contributions that all of those peoples make to our country.
I agree. I think that privileged white folks forget that they did not put this shit together. Yeah, it's just me calling it like I see it. Y'all haven't heard me in a while, so you're getting a double dose of Raina spitting fire. So, yes, thank you to the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander folks who help make us what we are, who bring their culture to the melting pot and melt in with us in a beautiful way. We appreciate you. We thank you. And please continue to, stay with this country because we need you. We need everybody, really. But anyway, okay. So there's some disturbing news as far as protests and the right to protest, specifically right now, campus protests. I think people forget history. Starr, you were very eloquently speaking about this before we even went on the air. So please give us the rundown of what is happening.
Okay, so and this has kind of been ongoing since Hamas attacked the settlements in Israel and scooped up a bunch of hostages. There have been periodically protests popping up on various campuses, college campuses, and universities across the U.S. But as more reporting actually happening within Gaza and the death toll of Palestinians has continued to climb. And I'm not talking about Hamas. I'm talking about the Palestinians who call the Gaza Strip their home. The Israeli Defense Force has been pretty relentless in bombing pretty much every inch of it, and the last city that's even remotely sort of standing is Rafah. And I mean the death numbers for Palestinians is like, I mean, tens of thousands at this point. I think the last number I saw, over 20,000. That's a lot of people. And these are just ordinary citizens who are just trying to survive. We're not talking about Hamas. We're talking about just, average people that live in the Gaza Strip and also the West Bank. I don't know that there's even a hospital standing at this point. Rafah is the last city, if you want to call it that, but it's taken heavy shelling as well. So in response to that, a number of student organizations at pretty much every university, well, not every university, but a lot of the big ones, Columbia a university in Chicago has been in the news a lot. There have been a number of, just big universities, a lot of them Ivy League, where protests have been happening, where students have set up encampments. For those of us old enough to remember, it's definitely a shades of like the Vietnam War protests. I mean, there was a lot, and I don't think we can even mention that without thinking about Kent State. For our younger listeners who may not have any real recollection of that because they weren't alive yet, there was a pretty major war protest at Kent State, and they called in the National Guard, and as a result of that, a number of students were shot and killed. The minute that I heard, I think it was Speaker of the House talking about calling in the National Guard should be called in to put down these protests, what I think of was how well that worked out during the Vietnam era, because people died. So I don't even know what to say other than I don't think that that's the right approach. I think one of the bigger problems with all of this is that a lot of these universities they're run by administrators that are not scholars. They're not, often not teachers. They don't seem to have a clear policy as to exactly what their policy is on protests, and they seem to be picking and choosing. Well, this one is okay, but this one is not okay. It's not being even. Their policies are not clear, and they're not being applied evenly. And then there's also this whole thing that if you're speaking out against Israel's actions, then your speech is anti-Semitic. I think that you can criticize Israel's actions without being an anti-Semite. There've been a couple of things that seem to be positive in this, in that the students at Brown University actually have managed to make some headway in getting the administration to actually listen to what they're what they're saying. Northwestern and Brown University have both managed to get administrators for these universities together with students and have hammered out some agreements, which has resulted in in the protests ending peacefully. And that's where I would really like to see this go, because the whole point of protests is to call attention to what it is that you're protesting and why, and get the action that you desire. One of the problems with what's been going on, like at Columbia, is students basically took over Hamilton Hall, and they broke windows to do so, and then they barricaded themselves inside. That kind of stuff really crosses the line when it comes to, that is not peaceful protest. And I get it. Universities have a hard decision to make. Their job is to keep people safe and to make sure that education can happen. And when that is disrupted to the point that no one can feel safe, then that's a problem. So both of those universities seem to have made headway in that. The University of Chicago, the president of that university issued a statement, I think on Monday, where he really tried to outline exactly how important free expression is, but also where the line is. And he did a pretty good job of it, and even gave examples of, what is effective and what is not effective. And, and I get it. The students that are protesting are like, well, what about, there, a lot of people have complained because now, like, graduations are being canceled, and, these are, kids that have, a lot of times, they've been in school for anywhere from 4 to 6 years, and they're they're going to miss their graduation because of all of this. And the protesters' response is, yeah, what about, all of the students in Gaza that, some of them are not going to live to even have a graduation, much less, they can't even, they can't even eat. They can't even find food. So I get it, but there has to be
I'm about
some
to say some shit. Okay, I'm about to say some shit that's going to piss people off. What a fucking surprise. But here's the thing. I believe in the right of protest. I believe in the right of peaceful protest. I believe in the right for everyone to have their opinion. However, if you are hurting people with your opinion in such a way that you don't need to, then why? So I understand there are people dying in Gaza, there are people dying in Israel, there are people dying everywhere. I really wish that the focus were more on how we're screwing up as far as taking care of our own children and not doing anything about gun violence in colleges and other schools. I mean, yeah, it's very easy to be pissed at what's going on outside of your borders, but the responsibility should be clean your own house first. I do believe in protest. I've protested, so yeah. And I want the cops to protect me while I'm protesting, as long as I'm not harming anybody or crossing any boundaries as dictated by the law that we've all agreed to, as opposed to people suddenly coming up with their own laws and their own decisions on who's right and who's wrong. You don't know. You don't live there. I don't live there. I have more issues, they have governments over there. They've got to straighten it out. Yes, the whole world is involved in the Israel-Gaza conflict. Everybody is. But until we can clean up our own mess, I think we need to protest school shootings here in America first. That, to me, is a bigger thing. in our immediate lives and for these children. Yes, it's wonderful that you're humanitarian. It's wonderful that you care about other people. What about the other people here? That's number one. Number two, you know, the comparative argument, well, why should you have a graduation when people in this other country are not even going to live to see it, is a bullshit cop-out. In my opinion, obviously this is just my opinion. Your desire to be disruptive is your desire to be disruptive. Your desire to make actual change is something else entirely. If you are so motivated that you want to make actual change, then go and volunteer at World Kitchen. Go and volunteer for Red Cross. Go and do something that's real aside from just standing there and making everybody else around you miserable. I'm not saying don't protest. Absolutely protest. But be fucking reasonable about the people around you. Everything is not about your desire to change. We all have a desire to see different types of change every week. So my point is, yes, there should be outlines for peaceful protests. Peaceful protests should always be allowed, period. Period. There's no question. It's a right as an American to be able to say, I mean, except for yelling fire in a theater, that's one of the tenets of being an American, is that we can express ourselves. Absolutely. And I don't have to agree with what you're saying. I don't really care. People are allowed to do what they want to do. But when you start ruining somebody else's life because of your opinion, I don't know, you're having a direct effect on someone else's life. That may not be so cool. I don't know. There's got to be a limit. And there's no, there is no hard and fast answer that's going to make everybody happy. And I get all that. But, again, the right to protest is an American right. That one I'd like to see continue.
Well, okay. So, I mean, and I think part of the reason why this has taken fire the way it has is, first of all, just the general rise of whether it's anti-Semitic or anti-Muslim. There's been a lot of that going all the way back to Charlottesville and the protests there in the recent past. So I mean, this is a hot button issue for sure, and it's really interesting to hear how these Republican representatives and senators have had really strong words for the protesters and are really quick to label them as anti-Semitic. Now, and grant you, I want to be clear, there have been other people that have been involved that, that are not even part of the university that have a lot of the really negative stuff that's been going on has come from people that are not part of the university and are what have been referred to as outside agitators. But it's interesting that the Republicans seem to, with one voice, be condemning all of the protests, calling them anti-Semitic when they were very quiet, when you literally had people chanting in the streets at Charlottesville right. in Virginia, and they were utterly silent on that for the most part. So, I mean, I think that there is kind of a double standard going on here, and yes, we should be protesting. I mean, and students have been protesting for gun rights, and I think that this just is everything is just kind of heightened and amplified. Yeah, I mean, it's just, so I think that's part of it. But the fact that Brown University and Northwestern have managed to come to an accord suggests that there's definitely hope for how we move forward. But it's a tricky time.
Sure, of course it is. But see, here's the thing about the Republicans, and again, my opinion, the only way they're going to successfully quell protests against Trump is to start elsewhere. If you write laws that you cannot protest but this many people, but this volume, but this location, but here, but there, and put all of these controls on it, this is what it's leading up to. I don't really think Republicans care all that much. I think it's all derivative of Trumpism. How do we keep our dissenters quiet when we steal an election? Well, we have to make sure that protesters can't protest. We have to keep the streets quiet. When you have silence, you seem to have agreement, or that's what people are led to believe. Remind people that in North Korea, it's very silent, lest you get killed or otherwise unalived. Same thing in Russia. It happens. People are targeted. People are kept quiet through control, through fear. I do not want to see my country become that. And every time something like this happens where voices are being silenced, I'm concerned. I don't have to agree with what you're protesting about. I do believe in protest, absolutely. And I think anywhere they're trying to shut it down when it's peaceful, it's something to shine a huge-ass spotlight on. But if it's not peaceful, then you're fucking up. I mean, I hope folks realize that. Violence is not necessarily going to get a good result. It's going to get locked down. It's going to get streets closed. It's going to get people shut up and arrested. So be careful out there. I love y'all. I don't want anybody getting in trouble. But we got to move off this topic because we got to talk about one of the main fucking stories for this week, which I could not believe. Starr, please tell people who Kristi Noem is.
Okay, so Kristi Noem is the governor of South Dakota, and she is vying to be Trump's running mate for 2024. So she wants to be vice president. So that's who she is, and she's quite a piece of work.
She's a mom, okay? She's
yep.
a mom, and she's raising a family, and she did probably one of the most heinous things. I can't even believe she did this. Apparently, she has copped to shooting her daughter's puppy. Excuse me, what? Help me out with this, Starr.
All right, so this first showed up, I want to say The Guardian published on it last Friday. I didn't see it until Sunday, and my jaw hit the floor. Noem has a new book coming out that's basically, a memoir of sorts, the title of which, No Going Back, The Truth of What's Wrong with Politics and How We Move America Forward. And it's scheduled to be published in May. The Guardian newspaper managed to get a copy, an advanced copy, and they were a little stunned by her admission in the book that a dog that she had, whose name was Cricket, it was a wire-haired pointer, and they were training it to be a hunting dog, and at 14 months old, apparently she was having trouble They were having trouble training the dog, but they took it on a pheasant hunt with some older, calmer, well-trained hunting dogs in hopes of that helping to even out this dog. And then she goes on in great detail of how the dog ruined the hunt and just was like out of her mind with excitement, chasing all those birds and having the time of her life. And Noam also claims in the book that that Cricket, the dog, was wearing an electronic collar that she attempted to use to control her, and that none of it worked. And then on the way home, somehow and inexplicably, she stopped to talk to a local family, and the dog managed to escape Noam's truck and proceeded to attack the family that she had stopped to visit with. The dog attacked their chickens and basically killed them all. And so Noam, basically her defense is that Cricket was an untrainable dog, and her response to that, after stating that she hated the dog and that it was less than worthless as a hunting dog, that she took the dog to a gravel pit and shot it and killed it. Now, this is a 14-month-old dog, which is not even mature yet. And typically, when you have a dog that you're trying to train for something, if it can't, unless it's aggressive towards people, I mean, a lot of dogs do not do well around livestock, particularly birds like chickens, and you don't shoot those dogs. You find other homes for them. But her response was to just put a bullet in this dog's head. But she doesn't stop there. After she puts the dog down, then she goes on to talk about, this is the same day apparently, that they had an unaltered male goat on the farm that she describes as nasty and mean, and that it smelled disgusting, musky, rancid, and loved to chase Noam's children, knocking them down and ruining their clothes. And then she goes on to talk about, how she shoots the goat as well and dragged it to the same gravel pit. But her first shot wasn't clean, and the goat survived the wound, and then she had to go back to her truck and retrieve another shell, and then had to hurry to go and put the goat down with a second bullet.
How inconvenient for her.
Yeah, how inconvenient for the goat that was laying there suffering the entire time.
Right.
There are so many things wrong with all of this. I mean, when you have a dog that is not suited to whatever particular training, often it's the trainer that is the problem and not the animal. That aside, there are programs pretty much in every state in this country that will take a dog like that and they will find the proper home for it. The thing with the goat really just flew all over me also. I lived on a goat farm for, about a year. And billy goats often are aggressive, and the reason that they smell bad is because they deliberately pee on themselves to attract females. And they often are aggressive, and they will chase you. But if you when you have one that is completely unmanageable, usually the only time that you would make a decision to remove a male goat that's unaltered is because it's a danger to the other livestock. Like if it goes after the, pregnant nannies or goes after the kids, and by kids I mean baby goats, then then you get rid of it. But in the farm that I lived on, we had a male goat that was very aggressive, and eventually he was put down, but we didn't just put a bullet in his head. He was slaughtered, and we ate his ass. So, I mean, just the level of unethical action here, and, even just the meat going to waste is like, I mean, and again, she could have easily probably found somebody else that needed a billy that would have taken that goat. Mm-hmm. As long as it wasn't aggressive to the nannies and the baby goats, I guarantee you there would have been somebody that would have taken that billy. So, I mean, just from beginning to end, it's just horrible.
Right. I mean, it is horrible. And the thing that bothers me is that it's, talk about privilege. Such a place of privilege to just decide you're going to off another living thing twice in one day without any thought to how this might make your children feel or how it may make anybody else feel, for that matter. I find that very disturbing that she celebrates this as some sort of a success and point in her favor. It's also the mindset of, well, I own it, therefore I can do whatever I want with it. And I hope she remembers that it was the general opinion of men towards their wives for a very long time, and that some men actually still harbor that view. And I wonder how much she would like it if she were on the receiving end of such care.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a completely a dominionist attitude for sure. But I mean, it's also, I mean, this is a woman that wants to be vice president. We don't want somebody I don't want somebody like this being anywhere near the presidency. The fact that she's a governor of a state is bad enough. But, the one thing, I got to hand it to her, the one thing that she has managed to do with her little tell-all on the murder, the senseless murder of domestic animals, is that she has pretty much united, left, right, and center, because she has roundly been condemned by Republicans and Democrats alike. Ryan Busey, who's the Democratic candidate for governor of Montana, said in a public statement, anyone who has ever owned a bird dog knows how disgusting, lazy, and evil this is. Damn. This went on all weekend and into Tuesday. She was still trending. People were marking their animals safe from Kristi Noem. A number of people were making major donations to various animal rescue organizations. I mean, think about when, Mitt Romney, when he was running, one of the times that he ran for president, the incident with the dog, that the family dog was in a carrier strapped to the top of the car. I mean, his campaign never really recovered from that.
No, it didn't. I mean, and I remember the jokes about, hey, let's strap Mitt up there and see how much he likes the view.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. So,
I don't understand. It's such a privilege to, be able to take care of another living creature. I mean, it's like I want to ask these people, God, do you treat your kids this way? Are they equally as dispensable? You got to wonder. And I know that's like, oh, stop saying that. That's not it. Well, you know what? Maybe not literally in a physical sense, but I will tell you that people like this haven't got a moral compass. And, these are the kind of people that will turn into Trump people who, it's every man for themselves, even within their own family. So I would say, no. I mean, do I think she would shoot her child? No, not necessarily. But I do think for some kind of political gain, these people cannot be trusted, not even with their own children. Just saying.
Oh,
follow it to its conclusion.
Now she's also saying that it's fake news.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. You wrote it. You put it in your book. How is it fake news? I don't understand.
Right.
How can you possibly make that claim? It's the words you wrote, lady. I mean, wow. Talk about
she's saying. Well, so what she's saying is that the dog was extremely dangerous and deserved her fate, and that this is how fake news works. They leave out the most of the facts of the story and put the worst spin on it.
Wow. So this happy dog who was behaving like a puppy, stop me if I'm wrong, behaving like a puppy with puppy behavior. I mean, have we spoken to the people who own the chickens that this dog allegedly attacked? And if the dog was able to kill all the chickens, how many were there? One? I mean, there's a lot of holes in this story.
For sure. And I mean, and I don't doubt it. I mean, I've seen hunting dogs that, if they're not properly trained, and, even a dog that comes from a good bloodline for hunting, not all of them can be trained to be a good bird dog. And this dog may have been one of them. Was she dangerous? I mean, it's hard to say, but I mean, her kids had contact with, with the dog, and even, asked her when they, when she picked them up at the school bus where the dog was. So, I mean, it's hard to say, but just, it almost seems to me that this was a ploy both to get attention and also that people are gonna buy her book. And she even says that I hope people really do buy this book and they find out the truth of the story, because the truth of the story is that this was a working dog and it was not a puppy. It was a dog that was extremely dangerous, which I'm sorry, 14 months old is not a full-grown dog. It's still somewhat of a puppy. And rather than putting it down, she could have, that was a choice that she made. She could have found, a rescue that would take the dog. She could have given the dog away. If it's a good bloodline, she could have even sold it, not necessarily for, hunting purposes, but possibly for breeding. I mean, there's lots of options here. But instead, she chose to put a bullet in this dog's head, and I mean, I just don't think that there are very few animals that, like if the dog had rabies, yes, put it down. And I also love the fact that that the Biden camp was definitely trolling her, because I saw posts about Commander, the German Shepherd, that was eventually, removed from the White House because he liked to chomp on Secret Service agents, and so they pointed that out and said that that he was safe from a fate like Cricket, because he may have bit people, but they did not. They didn't put a bullet in his head. They rehomed him or found a place for him to be. And I think that's the larger story here, is that
Well, if I
she
could,
had choices.
I would like to point out. Here's the thing that's really fucking working my slinky right now about this whole story, is the fact that what kind of irresponsible pet person, even if you're, listen, I lived on a farm as well for a brief amount of time, granted it was less than a year, but I've been chased by billy goats. Nobody going to shoot that goat. You need to get out of the goat's way. That's his house. There's certain levels of respect. If you have an animal in your possession that is a violent animal, what kind of irresponsible ass stops by a neighbor's house to visit with this dog in the car? I mean, how stupid does a person have to be? How irresponsible does a person have to be? You have a dog that you had in the car that you were going to pick up your children in. I mean, do you see where I'm going with this? The whole thing smells like shit. Yeah. So I think, in my opinion, the reason she did this, the reason it's in the book, was to show people that she's as outrageous and single-minded as Trump. I think this is all to draw a comparison, to make Trump think she'll do whatever it takes. She'll do whatever is necessary. She doesn't care about consequences. She doesn't care about feelings. That is what this to me. This is just my opinion, but I don't think I'm wrong. Seriously. I don't think I'm wrong.
No, I agree. I absolutely agree. She's just irresponsible, and she made a very irresponsible choice. And I mean, if that's how you treat your animals, how do you raise your children? As well. So yeah. Anyway, so that's our take.
I have questions. I have questions about her validity as a. Never mind. I don't. I'm gonna say
as a human being.
Just saying. I mean, maybe it's just me. What do I know? But in any event, all right. So let's move on to other shitty people. I mean, other shit in the news. I mean, you know what I mean. All right. But before we do, I just want to remind everybody, please visit wildhunt.org. Give it all your support. It is the pagan paper of record. We sure do appreciate your attention. We need real journalists and real journalism, and the Wild Hunt does provide that. So, again, that's wildhunt.org. Thank you very much. The next thing I really want to talk about, because I don't want to miss it, is the Florida 6-week abortion ban that went into effect yesterday. Holy shit. I'm so confused right now, because I thought the whole thing about making Trump president for the fundamentalists was that he was going to get rid of abortion. So, okay, he's gotten rid of it. Now he's backing up on it and saying it should go back to the states. Huh? Do you see what the states are doing? I mean, what do you believe, sir? Because you went around and tried to make people think that you were an actual Christian. We fucking know you're not. What is the game plan here?
Oh, well, I think that as far as Trump goes, I mean, he doesn't believe in anything, and I don't think he really cares about anything other than having the, of the conservatives that got him elected and being able to tap into the evangelical far right. What those people want is they want to make abortion completely illegal, and they don't really care about, I mean, one of the really horrible things about the law that was passed in Florida, is that an emergency room doctor cannot even speak to a patient that is pregnant about what their options might be. So a lot of people go to the emergency room and for one reason or another, pregnancy not being one of them, and in the course of having urinalysis and blood work done, they find out that they are pregnant. So what this law does is it prevents doctors from discussing that, what the options might be for someone that is pregnant whatsoever. They can't even talk about it. They cannot discuss it with their patient.
Pretty awful.
Yeah, it's pretty awful, and we're going to probably see more of these bills, getting passed by state legislatures, and which means that more women are going to die as a result, because that is what the upshot of bills like this, are. And it will take, I believe that eventually, we will get back to a place where abortion is legal. But I think for now that we are probably looking at partial or total bans in a number of states. And, and until all of that gets resolved, this is where we are with things. And the people who are the most affected are the people who can least afford to be affected. So anyone that is, a low income, in a low income bracket, they can't afford to fucking hop on a plane and go get an abortion 4 states away. There's even been talk of, one of the things that Trump said in an interview yesterday or the day before was that, because they asked him, said, well, whether or not he felt like, women's pregnancies should be monitored, so if they get an abortion or do something to jeopardize the pregnancy, that they can be prosecuted, which, I mean, Trump has said repeatedly that he feels like women who get abortions should be, that there should be consequences. This is taking it to a whole new level. So, the idea that the states, the individual states are going to monitor women who are pregnant, which, I mean, on one hand, that's as laughable as saying, that they're going to monitor who's having sex with who. First of all, they don't have the ability to do that. They simply don't. They don't have the manpower. They don't have the ability to do that. So that's like kind of it's somewhat of an empty threat. You're having your next door neighbor report on you is more likely, similar to what, like the laws that were passed in Texas. But I think this is where this is going to be headed. eventually they'll overturn it, and we'll probably have something that is better than what we even had with Roe v. Wade. But for the interim, it's going to be a rough ride, and I would not want to be a woman of reproductive age, frankly.
Yes, I agree. I would not want to be a person of reproductive ability. I could not. Are you kidding? No. With an abusive ex-husband like I had, if I'd had to carry a child that term, I'd be a dead person. I would be dead because he would have eventually found a way to kill me. The only reason I was able to get away from my second husband, my abuser, who is now thankfully dead, is because I was able to get an abortion. Period. That is the upshot.
Mm-hmm.
Women's lives are in danger, not just physically from a pregnancy that is not on the right track. They are in danger from men who get them pregnant on purpose to keep them, to terrorize them, to abuse them. So, I'm just saying.
Here's a fun fact. Here's a fun fact for you. With the restriction of abortion, what you see, and there's statistics to back this up, is that there is a greater incidence of domestic violence. Like, I forget what the percentage is, but yeah. So just know that, I mean, regardless of what people say, when you restrict access to women's health care and to reproductive health care, it automatically, what you're going to see is an increase in domestic violence, period.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm just saying, I speak from experience on this. It's not about protecting babies. See, that's the fucking myth. That's what they want you to think it's about. It's not about, let me tell you something. If your baby was on fire, Trump wouldn't pee on it, okay? That's what we're talking about. It is not because they have any love of humanity. It is not because they are so afraid of God. Trump is his own friggin' God. And if you think that he believes anything different, you have not been paying attention. Anyway, enough of that soapbox. All right. In the few minutes we have left, let's talk about Wyoming. Oh, geez. Talk about cutting voters' rights. Go ahead. Tell them what's up.
Woo. All right. So, well, first of all, I want to preface this by saying that as part of Wyoming's state, how the state is run, that every February they purge the voter rolls, and that involves removing any voters who did not cast a ballot in the most recent election. So in this case, 2022 was the most recent election. As a result of the state law, which I'm not really sure how that's even constitutional, because the U.S. Constitution, I don't know that this is constitutional, but this is what Wyoming does. So as a result of the number of people who did not vote in Wyoming at the end of 2022, they have removed roughly 83,500 voters, and that is roughly a 28% drop in the number of voters in the state. So, I mean, that's pretty wild.
Yeah. Another reason as we keep telling everybody, you have to vote in every election. You can, listen, Starr talked me into absentee voting once, and I was like, hell yeah, it is not that hard to get your vote in one way or another, and it's your duty, because when they start doing shit like this, let me tell you what, in some states, the margin between Trump and Biden can make all the difference between a winner and a loser. Don't let this shit happen to you. 83,000, excuse me. That's a lot of fucking people. That's a lot of votes. That can sway an election. I'm here to tell you. Don't let this happen. Get out there and vote. Don't give them the opportunity to take your vote away, because that is what they are looking to do. Saying.
Well, and the other thing here, too, is that this is why no matter what state you're in, what state you live in, to check to make sure that you're still registered to vote.
Yep. Every year. Check every single year. You need to check. I do. Every year. Just in case. You don't know. There's shady shit going on.
For sure.
You know?
For sure.
I mean, seriously.
Yep.
So anyway, in the few minutes we have left, is anything else you want to hit on? Like the gag order?
Well, actually, I would like to just point out that United Methodists voted to recognize LGBTQ clergy and members, which is kind of a big deal. You know, as a result of that, they've lost a bunch of their more conservative members. But even, like, I think Texas was one of the states that had a number of conservative United Methodists leave the organization. But even so, they, I think it was something like maybe 25% in Texas. But even with those losses, they are still one of the largest Protestant churches or, you know, religious organizations in the state of Texas. So I don't think they're going away anytime soon. But that's a clear victory for, you know, progressive ideology. And, you know, and this is nothing new. I mean, this has been happening in every other religious, you know, Christian religions, even, I forget, there's some, like, ungodly number of Catholics. Like, I mean, it's like 75% believe that LGBTQ marriages, even, that the Catholic Church should recognize those. You know, and clergy as well. So, I mean, things are as much as the far right and the conservatives would like us to believe that, you know, that all of these things are not what people want. The reality is that it is what people want. You know, whether we're talking about abortion, whether we're talking about LGBTQ rights, you know, whatever it is, like, at any given point in time, anywhere between 60 and 70% of the country tends to support those things. And sooner or later, these idiots are going to dig their own grave when it comes to the far right, because they really are the minority, and it would behoove all of us not to forget that and to stand up and be counted, like, every opportunity that we get.
Agreed. And on that note, we are just about out of time. So I'm Raina Starr. Hope you guys have a great week. I'm off tomorrow night. Say good night, Starr.
Good night, Starr.
Thanks for listening, guys. Talk to you next month.